Hello, how's it going? We're back at it once more.
Are you asking me how it's going?
Yes, and the world.
Me, good. World, good, maybe.
Wow, I haven't heard anyone say that in a long time.
What's this?
This is the Golden Talkies. We talk about films that came out 50 years ago this week.
Oh, I thought it was 70 years ago.
Your transgressions have not been forgotten, my friend.
No. Yeah, we watched something come out 50 years ago, hence the Golden. It's quite clever.
Yeah, it's Golden Anniversary.
We could also watch films that came out 65 years ago, right?
Yes, technically, but who would want to listen to people talk about films that came out in 1955?
Yeah? Why did you say that so weird?
Because I was doing the maths in my head and was
Right.
trying to figure it out.
I had already worked that out in my head, though. I mean, it doesn't take long.
Well,
Just kidding.
took me a while.
Just kidding. Ha 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 ha. What film are we watching this week?
It is a delightful film based off a play called I Never Sang for My Father.
That's right. Okay. So normally we start the podcast as some historical context. I was very rushed today. As I think I've talked about in the podcast before, I've been having some troubles with my computer. I have bought some new RAM, but I have not yet installed it. So on the starting up of my computer, it said that there was problems and I had to do it. And actually, while I say that, I'm just going to start recording on my phone as well, just as a backup. So, wait, give me 1 second. Voice recorder. Start. So, if the podcast ended up starting here, it means I had problems with my computer, and I apologize for the awful quality of me recording on my phone.
Yeah, you should apologise.
Yeah, that was quite rushed. Yeah, I've got the RAM here. 2 8GB sticks of Corsair Vengeance LPX.
Is that good? Is that the best one?
No, I think it's literally what I had already, and the guy just sent it. Like it's a straight up replacement. I'm thinking of getting a new computer. I was thinking Christmas, but I think I'll try and keep this one going for this academic year, and then over summer. I mean, I'll see where I end up and what I end up doing, but I'll probably get a new one then.
Your old one.
What will I do with it?
Yeah, will you give it to me?
I probably could do. I mean, it's having problems, but I was probably just gonna, I don't know, have it sitting in a corner. I was thinking about that. What I probably should do with my old one, I should work out what parts are still good and fine, and use them in a new one to make it even more powerful for less of the cost. But yeah, I can probably give it to you, bro.
Sweet.
Probably, would you pay for it? Anything?
I don't know.
Like a little bit.
I
mean, if it was still completely fucked, then you wouldn't. But like, we can discuss this on podcast. But yeah, I mean, yeah, okay. I hadn't even thought about giving it to someone else. So there you go.
Cool.
You might get it for small low cost.
Yeah. Speaking of broken electronics, my TV fell over this week and was killed horrendously. Because I've been complaining to you about it a lot.
Yeah.
But,
my there wasn't like I know why you telling me again. It was just a.
Yeah.
It was a.
But yeah, I took
reaction
it
of
to
sadness.
two repair places, and they said it wasn't possible to repair a TV where the screen had been broken, which I think is a bit weird because what else can possibly happen to a TV really?
Well, the wiring can go haywire, I guess. I don't know.
So took it to the recycling centre in the sky.
Well, that's
tomorrow. That's cool.
At least you took it to a good home,
Good home, yes.
Yes.
It's always annoying that you have to walk to recycle your electronics super far.
Yeah, we've got a broken toasting machine, and I'm very tempted just to throw it in the bin, but I think it's big enough that it's definitely a bit of household electronics that should be
dealt with properly.
What was I going to say? Yeah, so I was very close to buying a new computer, but I'm holding off on it. And the reason I started talking about my computer is it's historical context time, but I don't have very much because I was very rushed.
Alright, do you want to talk for a bit while I look up what happened on this day in 1970?
You can do. I mean, I don't think there was nothing on takemeback.to really, but feel free to do so. The main thing, Time had a couple of interesting articles, and as I explain every week, I don't have a membership to Time, so I can't actually read the whole articles. I can just read the headlines. But they had an article on product placement in films, which
Cool.
was the headline I believe was you've seen the movie, now watch the ad, which was a clever sort of inversion of the, normally it's you've seen the advert, now watch the movie, and this
I
was a
get you.
little inversion of that, which is quite clever.
Mhm.
I'm not sure if when I'm not sure exactly when product placement started. The article is written as if it's quite a sort of prevalent thing at this time and quite a new thing at this time, from the first paragraph that I could read. So that could be a new
Have
thing
you?
for us to keep our eye out for. I can't think of any egregious bits of product placement that we've seen so far.
Yeah, I was about to say I can't think of any that we've seen that are
Yeah.
particularly standard. Although it might just be because we don't really know the brands that were around then. So maybe we don't
Yeah,
really know.
as much, or even if we do know the brands, maybe the logos are more subdued or old-fashioned, and we don't really pick up on it
Yeah.
as our current cultural sort of codification of what brands look like. Um,
Yeah.
that was a good use of words, wasn't it?
Mm.
Anyway, so we should look out for that going forward for product placement, because it sounds like it could be a sort of thing that's happening around this time. And then the other article that Time had was about porn,
Uh,
which was just funny.
Certainly seen a lot of that.
Good.
What was it? Like, I meant on the podcast.
Oh, I thought you were just. I thought you were just saying in your life you'd seen plenty of that.
No.
No, you never watch it.
I
What
would
was it
never.
saying
I'm
about
a
it?
good
Fuck.
Christian boy.
Wait, let me go back to it here.
Presumably talking about it being bad.
Well, I think I don't think it was necessarily saying it was bad. It was questioning it. There was some pornography. Is smart good for you? Okay. So there was a President's Commission on Obscenity and Pornography. The report of the panel's majority gave critics more to complain about. So the majority, the president had a commission on it, and the majority of those involved, the panel involved, said that it was a bad thing and it caused crime, delinquency, deviance, or emotional disturbance.
Yeah. No, wait, no, that's silly. What the fuck am I talking about? No, that's
Yeah,
wrong.
it is wrong. Well, yeah, pretty wrong. So anyway, so that's all I could read, but I assume the article goes on to discuss whether it is good or bad. It's probably an opinion piece. Yeah, that's all I had.
Cool.
What have you looked up? What happened, if anything?
Yeah, very little.
Yeah.
Third president of Egypt was sworn in 50 years ago today, the 17th, which is when we're recording.
Right, but the film came out on the 18th.
Yeah, the film came out on the 18th. Nothing really happened. There are some famous birthdays. One actor got married to an actress. I hadn't recognised either of them.
Right.
So, uneventful week. As most of them were, I suppose.
Kathy Whitworth won the LPGA Quality Czech D Golf Classic.
And we're grateful to her.
Yeah, and Sachio Kinugasa begins 2,215 cons game streak for Hiroshima Carp. What, do you know what that is?
Nope.
Hiroshima Carp.
I know.
Oh, it's I do know the Hiroshima Carp. They're a baseball team. I do know them because they've got they've got really cute logos, like a kid with a baseball bat, which doesn't look very threatening, in any way, but it's quite funny.
Cool.
Some of the Japanese baseball teams are quite well named. I find a lot of Japanese sports teams have good names because the translation's not quite there, or the cult. Maybe it's not so much translation, but the cultural, signifiers are different.
Language and cultural barriers.
Yeah.
Double whammy.
Oh, sorry, I'm just adjusting my mic there. I'm sure that sounded great. Actually, no, there's the Giants, Tigers, Dragons. Yeah, I think the Carp, actually, looking at it in the Nippon professional baseball, actually, it looks like the Carp are really the main one that are weird.
Players.
The Bay Stars, Fighters, Buffaloes. Yeah, actually, yeah, just the Carp. Anyway, I appreciate that. So good for him. He started some kind of streak or something.
Yeah, a lot of the more important things are sports, which, I can't say I massively care about. But,
Well, I remember when I tried to talk about boxing last week, even though the film was out about boxing, you were getting very bored.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so I should stop talking about Japanese sports, is what you're saying.
I don't know if you think it's interesting.
Because it's triggering. I think it's interesting. I find Japanese sports very interesting. Anyway, what's the film? The film is I Never Sang for My Father. Would you like
Yes.
to do your plot summary?
Okay.
What happened?
So, as I say, this is based on a play, which I feel is important to talk about because it's very much not got much of a plot. It's really more about dialogue between,
Yeah.
say, 4 important characters. I think would be the highest you could say. The-
I would say
I would say the son, the
6.
mother, the father, the sister, with
I
the
would.
mother.
Yeah, the son, mother, father, sister, but then also his wife and his lover are kind of important.
They only have one scene each. So
Yeah,
so-
yeah, yeah. But I mean, the scenes are important. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's not
Yeah.
so. Yeah.
Well,
It's a film about family. We should say that first. It's a film about
Yeah.
family, specifically father-son relationship. But with it being about family, yeah, the mother, father, sister, and the son are really the.
like I say, mother probably
Keep
not
you up.
even less so. Really just the 3 of them. But
Yeah.
it's so our star is Gene. He is a middle-aged man. His wife has died about a year ago. We find.
And who plays Gene?
Gene is played by Gene Hackman.
That's right.
Cool thing in plays where they don't really bother to name characters of different things.
That's true.
Um,
Although, is he called Gene in the play?
I'm gonna guess he'd be called Gene in the play, but I might be wrong. Anyway, Gene lives
Gene
in the same
Hackman.
as
Gene Hackman's been in a few films. Go on. Sorry.
yes, he's quite a famous actor.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, normally we talk about what films he's been in, Jamie.
would you like to talk about Gene Hackman's filmography whilst I look up who played it in the play?
Yeah, he was in French Connection, which I've not seen. He was in Bonnie and Clyde, which I have seen, alongside Estelle Parsons, who we'll come on to later. And he was in Superman, and he was in The Poseidon Adventure. Have you seen The
Yeah.
Poseidon Adventure, Jamie?
I have never seen The Poseidon Adventure, although it is very famous. I have not seen Bonnie and Clyde, and I have not seen The French Connection. So,
Right. I've
that?
seen The Poseidon Adventure and Bonnie and Clyde, but not the other 2 films I mentioned. I've not seen Superman or French Connection. The Poseidon Adventure is very good. It's a very kind of I don't want to say campy, but kind of campy like disaster film. And I love disaster films. I'd say it's one of my favorite genres.
Yeah. No, I remember my mum telling me about the Poseidon Adventure. So it very much freaked her out when she was a younger lass.
Yeah, it's pretty scary stuff.
Yeah.
They did a remake of Poseidon Adventure in 2005 as well.
Ah, cool. Do they eat each other in Poseidon Adventure? I feel like I remember my mum telling me that.
Not that I remember of, but I watched it a long time ago. So they could do, or maybe they come across another group that has eaten each other because they were like walking around the ship. I don't think they eat each other though because I don't think the time period is long enough because it's about a ship that capsizes. So like
Yeah, it's upside down, right? That's the whole.
Yeah. So like how long could they really,
Take.
take to eat each other? Anyway, that was a bigger aside than planned. But that's Gene Hackman who plays Gene, and Jamie's going to seamlessly switch back into his.
All right. So Gene lives in the same town as his parents do, as many do.
New York. Well, he lives in New York and he lives outside New York, so it's the same area. Yeah.
I'll be honest. I didn't pick up that it was New York. I just knew it was a town on the East Coast. But
Right.
what, that makes
It's
sense.
New York.
Yeah. Well, small town.
Small town
yeah.
New York.
Yeah. Not as big as regular York, but then you wouldn't expect it to be now, would you? Anyway, his parents live outside of town. We see him meet them at the airport. And, we find that his mother has been having seizures recently, so her health is very much in question. But he helps his mum and dad get back to the house. We get feeling for his dynamic, particularly with the father, which I feel personally is very well observed. His father criticizes him very casually, but there's a nice sense of it sort of being their natural rhythm. I thought it didn't come off as necessarily mean to me in the way that it might sound when I say he's constantly speaking, and it's more just the way they act around each other. I thought was quite true to life in a way. I would say, I don't know how you feel, that the mother's dialogue, on the other hand, I thought was quite shit. or at least didn't feel quite as well observed.
Yeah, she's very much just in the. She's almost like a placeholder, or not to say place. She's very generic, right?
Yeah, she just feels a bit like a cipher in that she's just kind of generically shows affection to Gene and his father, but doesn't really,
Yeah.
not in a very interesting way or anything, just very straightforwardly. There's not much like personal character to her. She and her husband bicker in a way that sort of feels all a bit closer, but to
Yeah.
like real as it were, but it still doesn't quite land. I would say.
Yeah, well, I think I think it was pretty. I didn't really notice her dialogue being not great.
But I think in contrast to the relationship between the father and son, which I think is very well observed all round, I think it shows a weakness. It's just neat. So he helps his mum and dad get home. C is then out with them. We see that Gene is wanting to move to California so that he can marry a girl he's met called Peggy. And his father says if he goes, then his mother will be beside herself. She won't be able to survive it. But he does tell her, and she's totally fine with it. And she says that it's really just his father, like trying to tell him that he wouldn't be able to handle it, but not really having the courage to do so directly. At this point, Jean goes home, and then we find that the mother has died. We go to hospital, and the father seems mostly unconcerned. In a
Well,
way
she's
that we
not. She's not died. She is dying.
Yeah, dying,
Yeah.
I should say. And his father's like, we should go to lunch. But Jean's very annoyed that he's not really taking her death seriously.
Yeah. So, well, he wants to stay in the hospital and eat in the canteen in case anything happens. And the dad goes, "Oh, she'll be fine on her own for a few hours." And go. I don't think. Does she die while they're at the club?
I don't believe so. No.
I don't think so. But that would be. I mean, that would be the. That was kind of what I was expecting. But.
I should say, because I forgot to mention that after he leaves their house for the first time, Jean goes and spends the night with a lover of his. And they have a little scene together where he mostly just complains about his father.
Yeah.
And then she's gone. But, she was there. She made her mark.
Yeah.
So I think she's really mostly there to have Jean have someone to discuss his feelings to his father for, where he's clearly deeply, deeply frustrated by him.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he uses the word hate in that conversation, but he's clearly deeply, deeply angry.
No, I think he does. He said, did he not say that he hates him, but he hates it. He hates him or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. Well, it's that sort of tension where, like, he doesn't like his father, but he knows he feels he should.
Yeah. Well, his dad's father walked out on the family.
Yes.
Before Jean was born.
Part of the sort of characterization of the father.
Yeah.
Is the father had a very tough childhood, but so his father walked out on them. His mother died very young.
Yeah.
In accordance with the American dream, he made a fortune, and he became the mayor and the head of the school board. So he's very much self-reliant. He preaches self-reliance a lot. He's very proud of not having to rely on anyone all his life. But he's clearly deeply sad about his childhood, and he talks about it quite often. I suppose I should just get through the plot before we can talk about characters more in depth.
Yeah.
So they have the funeral. Jean's sister Alice arrives for it. She was kicked out by their father before marrying a Jewish man.
Yep.
So she has a different attitude than Jean does. But they talk and converse about their various feelings about the father. At this point, they discuss what they're going to do with him, because they don't know because he can't be left in the house alone because he's old, and his mind seems to be at least somewhat going. So Alice suggests having a live-in housekeeper, but Jean's a bit reticent because he knows that the father will never ever agree to that. But they, decide they confront the father about it, and he says that he'll never ever accept this in all his life, because Jean will be there to stay anyway, so it'll all be fine. And Jean doesn't quite work up the courage to tell him that he won't. He instead sort of folds in on himself and says that he'll be willing to stay to look after him. At this point, Alice gets fed up with Jean because he says that he's never really been able to stand up to their father. and it's destroying his happiness. And she leaves. And so we see Gene. He takes a trip to an old folks' home to see if there's any possibility that that could work for his father, but it's a horrifying experience for him, and he realizes that that can never work. He goes back to the house. Peggy's there, and they meet the father, and the father's very charmed by Peggy, and they seem to be going well. Peggy offers to move her entire family over to New York in order to let them live with his father, but Gene says that that would be ridiculous. So then he and his father go upstairs to the bedroom, and his father have a very deep conversation about the father's childhood, where he discusses with vulnerability his feelings towards his own father, and his mother. And Gene begins to see shades of himself in his father's relationship with his father, sort of generational trauma, as they call it.
Yeah.
And so, moved by this particular display of emotional openness, Jane offers to have his father move back to California. But his father absolutely refuses to do this, and they get into a massive argument where the father decides that Gene is an ungrateful wretch. Gene declares that he never loves his father. The father says that Gene can declare him dead from now on, and then Gene leaves the house, and he says in Passover that, in epilogue, that he only spoke to his father a couple more times after that, and then the father died alone.
Well, no, he doesn't say that. He says that they visited each other a few times.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. A couple more times after that.
Yeah, but it wasn't like talk. Like they went and visited each other.
Yes, throughout the years. Yes.
Yeah.
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 Yep.
What were your thoughts?
I thought it was great.
I also liked it. What were some bits you liked?
Well, I mean, my overall impression of it. Do you remember when we watched Out of Towners, and I said that it felt too real, and it was bad because of that?
Mm-hmm.
Well, this one was great because it felt real.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same way. Yeah. It was really good.
It was a very well observed look between the relationship between the characters. I think it's very. I think when we were watching The Great White Hope last week, and we were talking about how that play's dialogue isn't very good. I think this was a very effective contrast with this dialogue is fantastic, because it's always a very emotionally charged situation between people who have very complicated feelings towards each other, who are all perhaps unrealistically perceptive and expressive about those feelings.
Yeah.
But are also always lying to each other and to themselves, at least somewhat. And I think part of me wonders if maybe just the key to having good dialogue is just to have people not tell the truth, because that way you're always at least engaged and trying to figure out what the real angle is, as it were.
Interesting thought.
Yeah, so we'll work from the most important and work our way down. What did you think of the relationship between Gene and his father, viewed holistically?
Viewed holistically?
Yes, I mean, that's what the core of the film is, and it's quite hard to talk about in individual moments, so it's really like the energy.
True. I thought it was great. It felt really real. I think everyone has that with their father to some extent, probably. Yeah, I don't really know how to put into words just how like real the film feels and how accurate it feels and how it makes you as a viewer think about your own relationships with your family and your relationships with people you know and other people's relationships with their fathers that you've observed and all this kind of stuff. And it really captures the essence of that father-son relationship, I think.
Yeah. Well, I think particularly for me, I felt like it's quite good at conveying the sort of tragic element of relationships as people get older, where as people become older and their friends begin to die, they become lonelier and lonelier, and they start to need you more.
Yeah.
And that obviously creates a great deal of emotional pressure that most people can't deal with, particularly when they're living their lives. Because Gene's father does some quite terrible things to him. Not terrible, but like it's clearly out of line throughout the film. But what's very persistently shown is that he is a deeply lonely man who just desperately needs. He wants his son in his life, but he just also needs to possess him, as it were. He can't quite deal with the fact that he can't be the number one priority for Jean.
Yeah.
Because Jean is his number one priority now, it would be fair to say.
But not in a good way.
Need for reciprocity, yes. It's a possessiveness.
Yeah.
But it's also, like, just the sadness that you do see, like, in older people when it's just, like, I mean, not to be too dark, but, like, just everyone they know is dead. And they just don't have anything left. And it's just not something...
Well, I don't even know if that's really the... I don't even really know if that's necessarily the thing. I mean, he's got these friends at the club and stuff that he's like, oh, I've not seen you for ages. I don't think...
He mentions that most people he knows are dead.
Well, yeah, I mean, obviously most people he knows are dead, but
as well.
I don't think it's that there's literally no one else. I think it's just, I think it's his like the easy person to go to is your child because you know there's a lot of stuff there.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to suggest that I think there's a loneliness to him that's very well communicated. Maybe trying to put that in terms that I tend to exaggerate with, because obviously it's a little softer than that.
Yeah.
But I think also, like, obviously the regrets that one feels towards the end of one's life as well. I think.
Yeah.
The father really likes to not pretend, but he wants to suggest that he and Jean had a close relationship growing up, and that never really existed.
Yeah, exactly.
To suggest that such a thing did.
I mean, he also has memory problems as well.
Yes, I think the beginning stages of Alzheimer's is the
exactly. Yeah,
suggestion.
which kind of adds to that, not being fully aware of the relationships that.
But I think
individuals.
Not purposely, but I think even if he was completely lucid, he would still be misrepresenting that relationship.
Yeah, I think so.
It would just, in his mind, having sort of turned things over to be more supportive towards him. Like, I think he genuinely does believe that he and Jean were close, or at least on some level. But like, that just wasn't true. It's just the way he sort of edited his memories in his head.
Yeah.
As we all do, because we're all constantly lying to ourselves, obviously.
Obviously.
That's true. I was going to say, I thought the way the mother's death was handled was quite good for the father as well. I think it's an interesting sort of... But I think, not to keep talking about in old people, I think as people get older, they do start to respond to death in a different way. I think it's interesting that the father sort of doesn't really grieve for the mother explicitly until very, very late in the film. He just he focuses. I don't think it's even selfish. He just focuses on how this has impacted his life, like holistically, as it were. He thinks a lot about his mother, and how she died, and sort of how.
Yeah, there's a bit when they go to the funeral home to look at coffins, and he sees when he goes, "Oh, this would have been the perfect size for my mother," and then starts talking about her instead of the fact that his wife's dead, and that's who they're looking for the coffin for. Which I think is, that gets that whole...
Yeah, Jean gets very annoyed that the father isn't talking about the mother directly. But I don't think he's really able, because he's clearly not the sort of person who's able to be emotionally vulnerable.
No, I mean, he's not emotionally vulnerable until the very end of the film.
Yes, but that's completely involuntary. He does break down crying over his wife's death. But it's very clear that that's not something he wanted to do. But I suppose in terms of like deflection, his two deflections, I think more about his mother, and to consider more the impact that she's had on him. I suppose, which is a sort of selfish way to grieve, I suppose, but also like a very natural one.
Yeah, I think so.
Yes. Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Anything else you wanted to add about Jean and the father?
No, not really.
Well, we talk about Jean, actually, I suppose, more from his perspective. So Jean's obviously very much caught in a situation that I think a lot of people are, where as we say, he really wants to like his father, but he just isn't able to. Because, societal pressure, you gotta just supposed to like your family.
Yeah, I know. It's tough, isn't it?
I do like my family, just to be clear. It wasn't like me doing a veiled reference to myself.
Kind of sounded like it was, though, bro.
Yeah, I realised.
Is there something you want to talk about on the internet?
But like, Jean's sister observes that he spent his entire life really seeking approval from his father, because he was never able to get it as a child. So he's always sort of sought careers that his father would approve of, such as joining the Marines.
Yeah.
And he's never left the city, partially because, at least she feels, because of his father. But Jean finds his father very. What would be he finds him frustrating because he finds his father's always infantilizing him, and is sort of unable to acknowledge that he is his own person with his own priorities. But I think also it is very clear that Jean does also want to be close to his father. And
Yeah, no, I think he does, definitely.
I think one of the sort of ironies, I suppose, of the whole thing is that both Jean and his father do want to be closer to each other. It's just that the way the father expresses that, and what he wants, sort of, not what the nastier aspects of what his father wants, sort of get in the way of that. Because I think the issue with this film, not the issue with this film, the issue with these characters is that they can't really be emotionally vulnerable with each other, as we talked about before. I think the father would be happy so long as he just knew that Jean really did know that Jean loved him, but he just can't accept that in any form other than possession of him utterly.
Yeah.
And that sort of creates the issue in the play.
The issue.
Yeah. Okay, Alice, I guess we should also talk about. So Alice is Jean's sister.
Yeah.
She was kicked out by the father for marrying a Jewish man and therefore has reason to resent him.
Yeah.
But I think Alice is quite an interesting character. She does take Jean to task in a way that is probably quite accurate in saying that he needs to start living for himself more.
Yeah.
I think also we see the way she's rationalized her father's rejection, which I think is very interesting, in that she's decided that what her father told her is like, you can't trust anyone, and like the world's a harsh place. And she says that this has made her tougher and that she can now survive. But like, it's quite a sad scene because you can tell even while she's saying that she doesn't deep down believe that's true.
Yeah.
It's sort of a post-party rationalized.
Exactly. She's pretending that she's thankful to him when really she'd rather he showed love.
Yeah. I mean, like, the effect of her father's like rejection has like left her with this deeply cold and tragic worldview. Which
I mean that we find out later on that he actually never wanted kids, and then she was the first, so there could be an element there, I think.
Possibly. I think that explains that would apply to both of them equally. They're not that different in age that, like, I think.
No, it's true, but I still think probably your first. I mean, you can imagine if you didn't really want kids. I mean, he seems like the sort of guy that would want a boy, you know. So if you didn't really want kids anyway, and then, you know, a little girl pops out, then maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Does she talk about how he treated her in childhood at all? I don't think he does.
Not really, no. I think she just mostly leaves it to, obviously, the night that's most significant for the both of them.
Yeah, she does say that he beat Jean, although whether that's bad beating or just normal beating.
I mean, I think I don't think it would be seen as tragic as, like, we'd say it today if someone, like, beat their kid, but it would still be, like...
but there's a big difference between physical punishment and actually getting a beating, you know?
I think it was supposed to be, like, not like he ever punched her or anything like that, but more like, you know, like, he would, like, slap him or, like, get a switch or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think it's not so much supposed to be, like, he abused you, it's more as, like, just, you know, he was the authority figure, you guys aren't.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. So I think Alice is, like, the rejection of Alice has at least in some way destroyed her emotionally. But Alice, to her credit, like, does genuinely make an effort. I think she does come to the funeral both for their mother, but I think also at least somewhat for the father. I think she does genuinely try to act with the best interest. She's willing to be a lot harsher than Jean is, but she does.
Yeah, I mean that's a big difference.
Go to the effort of trying to persuade him to get the housekeeper and stuff like that, which are moves she wouldn't make if she genuinely hated him.
No, she doesn't hate him. She really cares about him, but she knows that he will never. That he already does not like her, so she is able to, you know, be the harsh figure.
I think it's
sort
fair
of.
to say she is much freer than Jean is.
Exactly.
Partially because like their bond was already like irreparably severed like
Yeah.
years ago. I mean, I suppose it's sort of a parallel to Jean's in a way, in that in both cases it's like the idea that the the progeny would make a decision that is with the father's like vision for their lives. It's like completely unacceptable for him, and like the fact that he would be willing to cut off contact with his daughter entirely simply because she married someone Jewish is like a clear like indicator of his personality and like the issues he has with possessiveness and being unable to accept his children as separate thinking entities that are sort of destroying his relationship with Jean.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Right. Is there anything else you want to say in particular in terms of talking about like characters and character relationships?
Let me have a look at my notes here. Oh, you. I mean, I think you said it, but the dad really acts like he's still a child, which
Oh yeah.
yeah, like he gives him the directions all the time, and he complains
Oh
about
yeah. Sorry.
the fact that
Yeah.
he treats him like a child.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that's
Which
sort of that's what when I was saying like that was the rhythm. Like I feel like it's sort of clear that it's a dynamic that's existed between them
yeah,
all their lives, as it were.
exactly. That's what I mean.
Yeah.
There's a sense that there's been no change since he was a child, which I think is quite common, probably actually, when I
Yeah.
think about it. When I think about it, um,
Mm-hmm.
Jean, dad, sister, dad. Oh yeah. I don't know if you said it, but there's a sort of reverse of the thing where Jean really I mean, so Jean does see how I'm trying to think how to say this. Jean says that he's very upset seeing his dad become, less mentally able and less
Yeah.
physically able, and all this kind of stuff. Are you there? Oh, my screen
Yeah.
just went off. Cool. I was really worried there that the whole thing had been lost.
That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking.
So, that's the point where the sister says, "But you don't like him. You hate him. He beat you, and this kind of thing." And Jean's sort of argument is, yeah, he didn't like him, but he still looked up to him in a way just because he was so authoritative and so distinguished and so uses all these adjectives, and now it's really Jean finds it really sad, even though he didn't get on with him, to see such a great man become the sort of shell of his former self, and that's where a lot of his sympathy comes from, where he's not willing to move to California and he's not willing to do this and he doesn't want to do this and do that, which I think is interesting, because I think you do see that people that there's a lot of different father-son relationships out there, and I do think this film is a really good example of one. But there's a lot of nuances, obviously, in individuals, because it completely depends on two individuals. But I think that's probably a very common thing where you always look up to your dad in some way, even if you don't get on with them or even if they did things to you. There's some element of looking up to them, and I think it can be very sad to see any old person kind of lose that. You think about seeing like a leader or I don't know, a prime minister or something getting old, and I mean you don't really see that. I don't know why I said that, but yeah, it's pretty sad. And I think
that's just one of the like tragedies of aging, just in general. It's like I don't want to sound ageist, but like someone sort of becoming a shadow of themselves, particularly in
it's true.
Issue.
I mean, so Gene says to his wife that he wants them to die young. He says it as a joke, but I mean, part of that is about he doesn't want once they get married, he doesn't want their marriage to become stale and then start arguing like his parents is. But I think another part of that is just personally, to lose yourself is really, I mean, something that a lot of old people struggle with anyway.
I think particularly, like, it's very natural, like particularly like given what Gene's like sort of been doing like the last week or so. Like he's obviously like scared of old age, as we all are. And articulates that at least in a safe way, as it were. Getting back to what you were saying about the sort of authority figure thing, just because I feel it's probably a good point to bring it up. I think there's a very gender essentialist vein throughout the film, and I was wondering if you thought that that was something the film supported, or if it was the characters. I feel
There's a very what?
very sort of gender essentialist sort of
Gender
line.
essentialist? What the fuck does that mean?
Like, because you're a man, you have to act this way. Because you're a woman, you have to act that way.
Ah, right. Yeah.
Dean very much rationalizes his emotions by saying, like, I'm a man, so I have to like feel this way and do these things. I think the father does the same. The sister, for example, has this thing where it's like, you wanted a mother for a father, but he's a father. He's supposed to be harsh.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think, so I think that I don't necessarily. I wouldn't say Gene necessarily fits in with that, or the sister. I think it's really the dad that comes from that era, and because he's projecting such a sort of stereotypical masculine image, then for Gene, he kind of wants that. But then when you see the way that Gene talks to, I mean, you see the way Gene talks to both Peggy and whatever the other girl was called. When you see the way he talks to them, he's actually very open and very, what's the other word? Emotionally available and stuff, which I think kind of, yeah, it kind of shows this generational gap. I do think he still says that he wants to be strong and stuff, and I think he sort of does fall back on.
I think he definitely has these expectations for himself.
He does, but to a much lesser extent than his father. I think really his father is the one, and the whole reason that Gene has that is because his father very much follows them and has instilled them in him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think, particularly in the case of the sister, I think there's very much a case where, like, because they can't really totally rationalize the relationship they have with their father, they sort of fall back on these gender stereotypes as sort of an excuse.
Yeah.
So you can, like, explain it like that. With the sister, like, in particular, I say, like, sort of, like, just assumes that, like, only the mother can be, like, a loving relative, and, like, that's the reason, you know, like, Gene shouldn't be looking for affection from his father, which is, like, obviously completely fucked up worldview. But again, it's just sort of the way she's had to rationalize her own pain. And then, like, as I say, Gene sort of discusses how he's a man, but, like, it's to fulfill emotional obligations he already has. I think in particular it's talking about, like, his sister's asking why he feels he should take care of his father, and, like, he says, like, it's because I'm a man, it's my job to take care of him. But, like, even if we lived in, like, a genderless world, I think it's very clear that Gene would do so anyway.
Yeah.
Because I think, like, despite it all, I think he and his father do love each other. But it's just that they can't
show it in a way.
They can't show it, and both of them have a very skewed idea of what love is.
Yeah.
And both of them, like, have a good reference point for what a father.
I want to know what love is, Jamie.
Don't we all?
And I want you to show me.
Yeah, I suppose, like,
I want to know what love is.
An obvious connection that I hadn't articulated yet is that, like, presumably some of Gene's father's difficulties come from the fact that he never had a loving father, so he just doesn't know what a father-son relationship should be. So he's not rationalized it, but he's perceived it as this idea of, like, possessing his son, because he just doesn't have a reference point for what the healthy version would be. And I suppose that's sort of like the idea of, like, you inherit your parents' trauma, but you'll never fully understand it. Yeah.
Yes. Quite right.
Right. Is there any more character or thematic stuff you want to discuss?
Let me look. Probably not.
Okay. So moving on to, like, visuals and stuff, because I felt this was worth talking about. I think it would be fair to say that visually the film's fairly flat, with a couple of quite interesting ways.
I think so.
The director likes to end the scene with something a bit more visually interesting, or it's cinematographer, I guess. But I would say that it's mostly quite flat and functional. The one exception to this is the scene where Gene goes to the old folks' home, which it really did not work for me, personally. So what happens is that he goes to the old folks' home and then he looks around at all the old people, and it's, like, done sort of, like, alarming
horror film.
Thing.
I quite liked that bit, actually.
Intercut with scenes of his father. Well, it's more ambitious, but for me it just didn't quite land. Like, it just felt a bit too choppy and a bit too amateurish to really work. I think if there'd been, like, more of, like, a visual run in between them, but, like, the cuts were just a little too harsh to really land properly for me.
in that scene.
Yeah, just like between the father and the patients, like it just didn't quite.
Yeah, I kind of know what
It's
you mean,
trying to
but
like morph together into sort of crescendo sort of thing, but like it felt just a little too abstract. I think the other thing was that like it was trying to like show these old people as really horrible, but like it hadn't quite got good.
Well, I
job.
don't know if I don't think it was trying to show them as horrible. I think it
No,
was
but
it was
supposed
the
to
fact
Gene
that
being
they were
scared.
all in wheelchairs, and I mean this
Yeah.
links to the thing I was saying about he doesn't want to see his dad as not his dad, and the fact that they're all in wheelchairs and they're all chatting and sitting about, and there's nurses pushing him around and stuff. He cannot imagine his dad in that position, and I think that's yeah. I thought for me that scene worked well with the audio visual cues.
Well,
It was very much like a horror film, a thriller film, and it was so different in tone from the rest of the film. But I actually, for one, thought that worked.
no, I
Personally.
felt like the music was too harsh, but like the thing is, the second half
Hmm.
of that scene where the music calms down, then he sort of walks out a bit, and then like as he's walking to the car, you get like brief flashes of like the old votes and like how that's clearly disturbing him. I thought was really
Yeah.
effective.
Hmm.
I think it's
I
just a
found
little
that
too much, too fast. I think was
okay,
like,
interesting. I found the whole thing a nice break from the play element because I think this film is great, but you can really tell it's a play in a
Yeah.
lot of cases. It's very few characters, and a lot of it takes place in the house. There's a couple scenes outside the house. They kind of have a lot of conversations and stuff, and I do think, if you compare it to last week, I think it works infinitely better this week. And I was engaged the whole time, even though it was filmed more like a theatre play than a play. But I thought this part of the film worked really well as like a break from that bit.
yeah. Well, it's
Yeah.
definitely like the most ambitious bit. There's also, I think the music choices in the film are really quite terrible overall. There's like a scene in the beginning which like has really sad music playing, but like it's just overstating the emotions as it were, so it just comes off as a bit odd, if you know what I mean. I don't know if you can remember.
I can't remember that. No, I have to admit that apart from the hostel scene, I don't remember any of the music.
I think there's only like two scenes of music really, but I thought both of them were
Yeah.
a bit off.
Okay.
So yeah, I suppose like audio visually, I would say it does not rank well. I think it's quite bad. I would say.
I wouldn't say it was bad. I would just say it
audio
was.
bad. Yeah, I'd say the soundtrack is bad. I would say the visuals are mostly functional, with one experiment that I feel doesn't quite work.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. Any final thoughts? I suppose.
Any final thoughts? All right, let me have a look at my. I've got 2 full pages of notes here. But I mean, not that they're particularly sort of new stuff. There's an expectation from him that his kids owe him a lot,
Yes. That's
which we've talked about. But then there's a bit where the sort of sister says, "I don't expect anything from my kids when they grow up. I'm not doing it for them.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for me."
I
And I
suppose-
think the fact that his father walked out on him and he had to work from such a young age, he probably in his head he thinks that his kids should be really grateful that they had a normal childhood, when in reality, Gene literally says it to him. Gene hates that his dad had a bad childhood, but there's nothing he can do about it, and it's absolutely ludicrous to expect for the dad to expect Gene or his sister to give up everything just to look after him, just because he had to do that when he was a kid. The two things don't really line up, which I think is another probably a very common thing for people is I find that very
yeah. Well, I think
what's the word? Very recognizable and
Yeah.
what's the word when you get something you
well observed, I guess.
no
Relatable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think both Gene and his father see their relationships and their relationship, I should say, in very transactional terms.
Yeah.
I don't think this is like
The dad especially.
Neither of them quite expect their relationship to be unconditional. Gene does feel that he owes his father something, although it's much clearer in the father. The father will articulate it a lot more. But I think also, I suppose, sort of the idea of his father being a businessman as well, like having made his way in the trade, I suppose would also like encourage him to look at relationships in that way, simply because like that's all he's ever really known.
That's a very Marxist reading of this film.
It is, but That's the only way to read films, baby. And destroys us and each other.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I just call the shots like I see them.
The name of the film.
Up.
Name of the film was very good. I Never Sang for My Father. So that's revealed. Oh yeah, that's a great scene. So it's revealed later on that the name is that his dad could hear him doing singing practice with his mum, and then would come down and ask him to sing a song, and he would never sing it. And there's a lot of regret from him that he never sang it, I think. Which was that scene was just so powerful to me, and it made me really think. It was a good one.
Yeah, to not to drain it of emotional impact, but just to place it. That's the scene where they both genuinely do express love for one another. The one sort of expressed in terms of regret.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's pretty obvious we both quite like this.
Yeah.
As a film, we both found it quite emotionally involving and interesting.
Yeah.
I like films about dialogue and characters. They are generally quite good.
I like them if they're good. I think a lot of them are very bad.
Yeah,
I think it's very hard to do. Yeah. Okay, that's what I see. Yeah, I agree with you, but I want to put the caveat that I only like very few of them because it's so hard to do. But when it's done well, it's great. What are you going to rate it, Jamie?
I was going to give it a buy it. I'm curious as to yours, though.
I'm going to give it a Criterion Collection. 5 out of 5, baby.
Ooh, wow. I was interested to see if this was where the barrier would be broken for you.
That's it. So you put Il Conformista, right, into the Criterion Collection. I'm putting I Never Sang for My Father into the Criterion Collection. This is the best film we've watched so far, I think.
Interesting. I would think I'd rate it quite as highly, but I would definitely rank it up there.
But you're ranking it by it, which is just one below that. I mean, that's high.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I would say it's definitely the top 5 we've watched, quite easily.
This is a point where I look at what we've watched before and sort of confirm that I do rate this one higher. I think I do. Yeah, I mean, this is a 21st episode, by the way, which is how old I am.
Yeah.
As of 2 weeks ago. So. How old you are as well, but that's not so recent.
I guess it's obvious.
Okay, this is definitely the best one we've watched. Criterion Collection. I'm doing it. Yeah.
I would say that this, Il Conformista, and 5 Easy Pieces are the only films which, we've done so far that I could imagine myself, actively recommending to people I know.
Really? I would recommend Tora Tora Tora. I would recommend... That's probably it, to be honest. I think this film, I would definitely recommend to people, and probably Tora 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 I'd recommend as well.
No love for 5 Easies?
No.
I guess you didn't like that one as much.
No, I mean 5 Easy Pieces, now that I think about it, was similarly about a family relationship in many ways, and I don't think it did it anywhere near as well as this one. This one really hit home for me.
Yeah.
It was great. I almost cried, but I didn't quite. But I was very close to it. And there's very few films I've cried to. So.
Yeah, it's very very emotionally short time. I think there's a lot.
I cried at Eddie the Eagle. I cried at Dunkirk. That's the only 2 I can think of off the top of my head that I've cried at. So.
Okay.
And this one was very close, so there you go.
I cry at films quite a lot, so I can't really remember specifically.
Little bitch. I'm joking. It's good to cry. Men should cry more often.
The last time I cried at a film was watching the Symphogear finale when they all teamed up together for one big super punch against the god. So just so you know how low the barrier is.
Right. Okay. If you're a man listening to this, cry. Watch this film and cry.
And then watch Symphogear and cry.
Because it's good for you.
The platform 4.
It's good for you.
All 5 seasons.
And then cry because you've had to watch so much of whatever that is. I've actually watched 2 films between when I watched this and the day of recording.
Oh yeah?
Yeah. I watched one for my course, which was called Primates by what's the dude's name? It's a documentary film. Oh fuck! I just typed in primates. That's not gonna work, is it? Primates film. Oh fuck! That's not gonna work either. 1974.
Mm-hmm.
Primate 1974 by Frederick Wiseman. It's a documentary. It's not got many interviews or voiceover. It's mostly just video. It's in a primate research center in the U.S. and it just looks at what's going on basically, and it's quite interesting. There's a lot of ejaculation of monkeys, and the way that the scientists talk about it, I found quite funny. They talk about how they're going to get the best erection out of a monkey, how they're going to get the best ejaculation. There's a bit of humor in it. It's good. It's a pretty good film. And I watched Goodfellas last night.
You've seen that before, I assume.
No, I had not seen it before.
Oh, what did you think?
It was good. I
don't like it as much.
Definitely wasn't. I'm not sure if it lived up to the hype that I was expecting for it, but it was very good.
I don't rate Goodfellas on the same level.
Like I think The Godfather's better, and
knowing many people who do.
I don't know if The Irishman was better necessarily, but I maybe liked The Irishman more. No, I don't know if that's true. It was very good. It was a very good film. As you liked what? Sorry. You cut out a bit there.
Yeah, you did too. I was saying I didn't like it as much as I like Taxi Driver.
No, that's true. I'd forgotten about Taxi Driver. Taxi Driver I think is better as well. But I did think it was really good.
Yeah, it's alright.
Yeah. Alright. What else? Oh, I watched Apocalypse Now the night before I watched this film that we're talking about as well.
Yeah. You've seen that before, hopefully.
No.
Really?
Yeah, really.
What did you think about seeing it for the first time?
Well, I watched Apocalypse Now Redux. Have you seen that?
Oh, is that the director's cut that kind of like ruins it or so?
It's got 49 extra minutes of footage in it.
Oh, no.
I thought it was really good. It was a great film.
It was a good film.
I would rate it Criterion Collection, probably. Maybe. Well, yeah, probably. It was really good. Great. That's what I've watched, and I don't think I've played anything. If we're going to do our what we watched and played section at the end. Here.
So I don't believe I've watched anything of note since last time because I've been a busy bee. I was for films. I watched Emily in Paris with Flat, which is an awful TV show about a young Instagrammer who goes to Paris to work for a French marketing firm.
Right.
And it's just a bunch of stereotypes and talks about the gram, and it destroyed my soul.
Why did you watch that?
For the hate watch. It's funny.
Right.
As a group. Not if you were...
Oh, you watched it as a group? Okay, right. Yeah. Okay, fair enough, right. I thought you were sitting your own watching film on Instagram, and I was like, right.
No. It's a TV show, Duncan. Second series coming soon.
You're going to watch the second series?
When it comes out, yeah, probably.
Oh, awesome.
In terms of games, I just bought Hades for Nintendo Switch, the hot new roguelike everyone's talking about.
Right.
Because I fell once again for the hype, as I keep doing, I should stop doing because I own too many games and I never play any of them.
Yeah,
but it's really
same.
fun. It's a good roguelike, the combat feels nice, there's a lot of dialogue, like really, really masses. It responds to like basically everything you do in ways that are cool and fun. Cool. I've always quite liked mythology, because of course I do, everyone does. So it's always nice to talk about that as a setting. I can't wait to play more of it. I wish I was playing it right now.
Well, you will be shortly, Jamie, don't you worry.
I guess that's all I've really been doing.
Cool. Space Crew came out recently, and I'm probably going to get it. It's a sequel to Bomber Crew, which is one of my favourite games of all time.
What were you saying? You cut out.
Oh, Space Crew came out the other day.
Duncan?
Oh, can you not hear me? Okay, we're back. I was about to talk about Space Crew, but I've not played it yet, so I'll talk about it next week if I get it and play it. The audio cut out, so we're just going to say bye. Hello.
Next week.
We should, Jamie, get this episode up to an hour, which involves like 10 more seconds.
It is up to an hour.
Oh, because you're going to talk about what we're doing next week anyway, so what are we doing next week?
Yeah. Next week we are doing Husbands, which is a comedy drama by Jonathan
Ah,
Cassavetes,
that was up on
director of The Dirty Dozen.
that was on Take Me Back, so it must be good.
There we go.
Okay, well,
Yep.
thanks everyone for listening. Jamie's going to go off and
Mhm.
play that game, which is presumably why he wants to finish now.
Yes.
We
Well, I have
we
to
will
work
see
as
you
well.
next week. You have work.
Cool. Yeah. That's how life works.
All right, mate. Whatever.
Basically.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Cool. Bye.
Bye.